All right, we have another one of these pesky judges with the temerity to assert the authority of the judicial branch,
More
almost
lawfare.
like we still have checks and balances in this country.
Right.
Judge blocks Trump's use of 1798 law to speed up deportations, but some migrants still removed. Now, I have been calling this, we've both been calling this for quite some time. Clearly, there was going to come a moment, probably sooner than later, where they just basically told the judge to go get their shine box. And it looks
Right.
like that moment has arrived 6 weeks in. You've issued your order, now try to enforce it.
Right.
So this is Marco Rubio earlier this week. We have sent 2 dangerous top MS-13 leaders plus 21 of its most wanted back to face justice in El Salvador. Also, as promised by POTUS, we sent over 250 alien enemy members of Tren de Aragua, which El Salvador has agreed to hold in their very good jails at a fair price that will also save our taxpayer dollars. President Nayib Bukele is not only the strongest security leader in our region, he's also a great friend of the U.S. Thank you. And now Bukele tweeted out, he's very proud of himself. Today, the first 238 members of the Venezuelan criminal organization Tren de Aragua arrived in our country. They were immediately transferred to Kekot, the terrorism confinement center, for a period of 1 year, renewable. The United States will pay a very low fee for them, but a high one for us. Over time, these actions, combined with the production already being generated by more than 40,000 inmates engaged in various workshops and labor under the Zero Idleness program, you can't make it up, will help make our prison system self-sustainable. Sounds like slavery, but okay. As of today, we have that here too. I'm not slamming El Salvador. As of today, it costs $200 million per year. On this occasion, the U.S. has also sent us 23 MS-13 members wanted by Salvadoran justice, including 2 ringleaders. One of them is a member of the criminal organization's highest structure. This will help us finalize intelligence gathering and go after the last remnants of MS-13, including its former and new members, money, weapons, drugs, hideouts, collaborators, and sponsors. As always, we continue advancing in the fight against organized crime, but this time we are also helping our allies, making our prison system self-sustainable and obtaining vital intelligence to make our country an even safer place, all in a single action. Now, you might be saying, well, good for them. They're members of a brutal gang. You know, I mean, be that as it may, we don't know. We don't know because they didn't go through a court process. That's the whole point. We don't know. These people could just be refugees. We don't know. We have no way of knowing. Secretary Rubio quote tweeted that. Thank you for your assistance and friendship, President Bukele. Now, one of those, that aforementioned pesky judge, ordered them to bring these people back. Yesterday, D.C. District Judge James Boasberg ordered a halt on deportation flights of Venezuelan TDA gang members being removed under the Alien Enemies Act. They landed in El Salvador last night to be kept in a max security prison. Trump's most consequential decision yet. That is Trump's simp account, Johnny MAGA. And Bukele gleefully responded to the headline of the judge order, oopsie, too late, with a laughing emoji. This is USA Today explaining it a little more. A federal judge Saturday blocked President Donald Trump from using the Alien Enemies Act to immediately deport members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, ordering any deportation flights underway as a result of Trump invoking the 1798 law returned to the United States. The order came after Trump on Saturday issued a proclamation, which he signed the day before, that relies on the 18th century law to deport members of the gang, which he said continues to engage in mass illegal migration to the United States to further its objectives of harming United States citizens. The Alien Enemies Act allows the deportation without a hearing of anyone from the designated enemy country who is not a naturalized citizen. The temporary restraining order is for at least 14 days to allow litigation in the case to proceed. In invoking the act, Trump's proclamation said Tren de Aragua, which Trump last month designated as a foreign terrorist organization, has been undertaking hostile actions and conducting irregular warfare against the territory of the United States, both directly and at the direction of Venezuela President Nicolas Maduro's regime. But Boasberg, an appointee of former President Barack Obama, said the Alien Enemies Act does not provide a basis for the president's proclamation, given that the terms invasion, predatory incursion really relate to hostile acts perpetrated by any nation and commensurate to war. Congress approved the Alien Enemies Act in anticipation of a war against France. It has been invoked 3 times during the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II, according to Catherine Jan Ebright, a counsel at the Brennan Center for Justice at NYU. The law says a president can invoke it during a declared war with a foreign nation or government, or when any invasion or predatory incursion is perpetrated, attempted, or threatened against the United States. If invoked, the foreign citizen could, quote, be apprehended, restrained, secured, and removed as alien enemies. Despite being invoked during wars, former presidents Woodrow Wilson and Harry Truman each continued to enforce the law after the end of hostilities, Ebright said. Wilson used it to detain German and Austro-Hungarian immigrants for 2 years after the end of World War I in 1918. Truman used it for detentions and deportations for 6 years after the end of World War II in 1945. The Supreme Court upheld Truman's extension in 1948 by reasoning the end of wartime authorities is a political matter. Quote, it is not for us to question a belief by the president that enemy aliens who were justifiably deemed fit subjects for internment during active hostilities do not lose their potency for mischief during the period of confusion and conflict, which is characteristic of a state of war, even when the guns are silent, but the peace of peace has not come, Justice Felix Frankfurter wrote in the 5-4 decision. These are matters of political judgment for which judges have neither technical competence nor official responsibility. Now, presumably, that is the precedent that they're going to rely on to try to claim, because clearly the country is not at war with Venezuela or any of the other countries that the deportees are from. So they're going to try to argue, well, it was allowed under Truman with this ruling. Now, something that particular judge got horribly wrong, I think most people would agree today, is that a lot of those people who were detained were just Japanese families who had actually done nothing wrong. He was coming from a place of presumption that this law had been exercised in a fair and just way. So why wouldn't you continue to hold them if they were hostile actors, when a lot of them were children and mothers? So here you go. It's on. Whatever you think about deporting these people, as we have predicted, the moment has arrived. This is exactly the Curtis Yarvin playbook. Flood the zone, do what you want, fire people, shut down departments, and when the court tells you you can't, tell them, okay, what are you going to do about it? Took 6 weeks to get there.
And when the decision seems least controversial is when you have to pay the closest attention, because it's when they'll try to do the most controversial thing they can do, which is defy a judge's order. Because as Russ said, and I would agree. I mean, if you assume that these are all MS-13 gang members, obviously it's a horrible, brutal gang, and most people are on board with deporting violent
Sure,
criminals.
sure,
But we know there have been people mistaken for gang members who were apprehended at the border. One guy had a
right.
tattoo on his neck that was not one of the signatures of whatever gang they accused him of being a part of. But they just treated him as a gang member because he had a tattoo,
Right.
right? And even if you think they should be deported, you still have a situation now. To me, the point of this story is you have that showdown. We didn't know what issue it was going to be fought over, but what happens when they tell a judge, fuck you, we're doing it anyway?
Exactly. And what implications does that have on everything? Because clearly their point of view, and Elon is continuously tweeting this, is that judges have no power. And that is
Right.
not how the Constitution is set up.
Right.
Now, if you want to argue, I've been saying this since day one, if you want to argue that you don't feel that our constitutional system of government works anymore, just say that, own it, and say that you want a king, because that is really what they're describing. Elon is, I'm sure he knows better, but he knows a lot of the ignorant followers he's cultivated don't. That
Right.
this is crazy that judges have this power. What's the point of an election? Well, see, we had this revolution against a king, and the founders were very skeptical of centralized authority and the abuses that it's prone to. So they set the system up where presumably or theoretically, no one part of the government could really gain inordinate power over society without being checked by the other two. That's not a bug, it's a feature.
Of
Now you
course,
want
the
to
whole. Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
you want to say you feel it doesn't work? Okay. All right, but then admit that you want a king or you want a modern version of that. What Curtis Yarvin describes as a kind of an executive CEO that has king-like powers.
Well, yeah, the whole point of the judiciary is that it is relatively unaccountable to the public. I mean, it's supposed to be unaccountable to the public in that way, because that is what protects the rights of the minority when one party has a majority, which is very often the case in this country, especially after a national presidential election where it's quite common for one party to run the table and have the presidency, the House, and the Senate. What protects the rights of the minority in those circumstances is an independent judiciary that doesn't directly run for office. Right?
Exactly.
They are appointed by people who hold office, so they are accountable to the public in that kind of a secondary way, but it's secondary. The whole point is to insulate them from the whims of the masses in the moment. Now, that does slow a lot of things down, but hey, when you're the out party, you're grateful they're there. And when you're the in party, they're a pain in the ass, of course, right? But that's the way it works.
So the Trump administration is not complying with an order from an Obama-appointed judge to turn around planes already in the air carrying illegal immigrants deported under the Alien Enemies Act. And now, as we know, they have landed and been detained. David Farah here. To the idiots celebrating Alien Enemies Act of 1798 invocation, did you know the last time this law was used was when we put U.S. citizens of Japanese origin in concentration camps? Imagine the next administration using it to put conservatives in concentration camps. You know, I am betting that they are assuming there's not going to be a next administration in any true sense.
Right.
Aaron Reichlin Melnick, one of the people seemingly deported to El Salvador unlawfully under the Alien Enemies Act, had a court hearing scheduled for tomorrow where he was going to present evidence that he was not a member of Tren de Aragua. Now he may be in a Salvadoran prison, and we know that now he actually is. And this is what he's quote tweeting. Our defendant client fled Venezuela last year and came to the U.S. to seek asylum. He has a strong claim. He was detained at entry because ICE alleged his tattoos are gang-related. They are absolutely not.
See,
I think
similar
that's the
case
case
to
you're
what
talking about.
maybe
It
it's
might
the
be the
same one, or
same
maybe
one.
it's a different. Maybe it's the
Yeah, it
same
might
kind
be
of thing.
another one.
Yeah.
My father-in-law was incarcerated when he was 2. My mother-in-law was born in a prison camp pictured here. It is despicable that Trump will use the same law used during World War II to carry out mass deportations of migrant families today. This is wrong. And here's Elon, because Congressman Brandon Gill is going to be filing articles of impeachment against activist judge Dame James Boasberg this week. Elon Musk, in his typical one-word style, necessary. Necessary. Yes, it's necessary to persecute judges for doing their job and raising completely appropriate constitutional questions. Now, again, hey, nobody's saying, at least we're not saying, don't deport violent gang members.
Right, of course.
You go through the process. You give them their day in court. You don't invoke a law from 1798 that's only been invoked in wartime to try to get around constitutional means of deportation. And for Americans who think, well, that's not going to affect me, you already have Trump saying he wants to go after people who boycott Tesla.
Yep.
No. Not just say, a lot of people say it's firebombing Teslas are illegal. Yes, it's illegal. You don't need to call them terrorists. He didn't just say that. He said the boycotts are illegal collusion.
Yes, he called the boycotts illegal. He didn't just call vandalism illegal. He called the boycotts illegal.
He called the boycotts themselves collusive, illegal collusion.
Yep.
For boycott.
Against the great American company.
Once you open this door where you're just going to let this administration come up with any flimsy pretense to get around legal procedure to do whatever it wants, and you think that's not going to come back to bite you, you're going to be sadly disabused of that, I think, sooner rather than later. It's not about protecting violent gang members. It's about protecting us. This is a very dangerous precedent, particularly in the defying the court order. At that point, you have a completely unchecked, all-powerful executive. You have a king.
Right.
Do you want a king? Because that's what you have if nobody can check his power. What else would that be but a king?
Right. So here's how the thinking goes on this, right? Because, almost no one is going to object to deporting MS-13 gang members who are here illegally. So you start with the group. Okay, obviously nobody is against that.
Right.
Then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, what if you get it wrong? What if in that example, that person had a tattoo that you misread as a gang tattoo? What if you sent an innocent person to an El Salvadoran prison with a bunch of MS-13 gang members and they're not in the gang, and you put an innocent person through absolute hell like that? Well, the answer among much of MAGA is, well, fuck them. If they're here illegally, it doesn't matter what happens.
Well, that's exactly what the answer is.
Right?
Yep.
They're a criminal anyway, right? And that is what we've talked about it a lot on this show. We're some of the only people who have been talking about this, I must say. If nobody, we don't pat ourselves in the back, no one else will. Once you declare it open season on a group, not MS-13, but a group, undocumented immigrants, illegal immigrants, if you want to call them that. Once it's open season on that group and they don't deserve due process, well, that's how you get to a point where you start mistaking, yes, undocumented immigrants who are not gang members for gang members. And what if you fuck up? What if you fuck up? And what is the harm in going through the process to make sure you get it right in every case? What is the harm of that? The harm of that is that it slows down their shock and awe operation. They are in hyperdrive now. They are trying to get as much of this rammed through as they possibly can. This is move fast, break things. This is big tech's ethos. Now they are applying it to everything that this government does,
right?
Because they just want to flood the zone. They want to do as much as they can at such a fast pace that the system cannot keep up with them. A system that is designed to keep progress, if you want to call it, that's at many times frustratingly slow, right? That system is not going to be able to keep up with just a runaway train of draconian policy. And this
Right.
is their playbook. Just go as
Right.
fast as you can and fuck it. Let the judges sort it out. That takes time. We're gonna be 100 steps ahead of them by the time they're on to us for the thing
Right.
we did 100 steps ago.
Exactly. This is the first time. That's what they've been doing. They've essentially been defying court orders while claiming they intend to conform to court orders. They're not going to defy the court, but they drag their feet. And then the court will say, hey, you were supposed to do this last week. Oh, we meant to do it last week. That's what they've been doing up to now. This is the first time they're openly defying a court order. And we'll have to see how it plays out. But it didn't take them long to get there. It took them 6 weeks. And if you look at their rhetoric, if you look at what Elon tweeted out there, and he's tweeted out many things like this, they don't believe that the judiciary should be able to check their power, not based on the Constitution, just because they don't want to. They don't want to. We want to do this. It shouldn't be this way. Okay, well, if the Constitution says that, it's wrong. So we're going to ignore it. And again, anyone who hasn't, go look at the Curtis Yarvin playbook. That is exactly what they're doing. This was the plan all along. Hey, what are you going to do? How is the court going to enforce its orders? Is it going to order the military in? Do they order the police to arrest the president? What are they going to do? Or are institutions robust enough to even enforce a court order in the face of a refusal from the executive? I suspect not. And at that point, again, you have a king. We got an email from somebody today, very nice, saying, I implore you to go to Brazil. It's very dangerous in your country. Come to a BRICS country, come to the global south. And hey, man, they're talking good sense. It's going to get very dangerous here very fast.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think that's 100% right.
Please clap.